Today I'm bringing you the best branded Chimera deck profile for the September 2023 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and welcome to another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. You know, branded is one of my favorite decks of all time. It's been getting tons of support over the past few years. But with the new support from Duelist Nexus in the Chimera engine, the deck has undergone another amazing transformation. Now, everyone and their mother has been releasing their own version of the branded Chimera deck list, but I guarantee you that no one is playing this deck just like I am. So if you're excited for the video, then make sure to smash the like button, because at 60 likes, I'll be bringing you an amazing branded Chimera combo guide, which will include some combos that you've never seen before. Also, if you guys like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos, combo guides, and deck profiles, then make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. We are super close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and make sure to join us on that journey. Now, with all that being said, here is the best branded Chimera deck profile for the September 2023 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. So here we are back with the deck profile, and I'll be honest guys, the deck itself is super fun, explosive, and has a lot of really interesting plays. We have a 44 card main deck, 15 card extra, and 15 card side deck. Now, we do have a couple of interesting pieces in this deck that are a bit different than most builds, so of course make sure to stick around for that, and of course make sure to hit that like button, because at 60 likes I'll be bringing you an amazing combo guide for this deck. But we're gonna go ahead and get started, and for the first time I'm actually not going to go by monster, spells, and trap. I'm actually going to go by the specific engines themselves. Starting off, of course, with our Chimera engine. We have the 3 copies of the Cornfield Kotal. We have the 3 copies of the Mirror Sword Knight, which for some reason I cannot find my 3rd copy. I thought I had one, but I guess I don't. We have the 2 copies of our Gazelle. We have 2 copies of Big Wing Baphomet, and we have 2 copies of Chimera Fusion. Now, let's go ahead and start talking about these cards here and why we're running these ratios. Obviously, 3 Cornfield, 3 Mirror Sword Knight are what you have to play. Now, the reason why you're playing these ones is because they are your 1-card combos for the Chimera Fusion archetype. Essentially, you're going to go discard Kotal to be able to get your Mirror Sword Knight. Normal summon the Mirror Sword Knight. It is a quick effect tribute, so you can dodge cards like Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, the Ghost Mourner. You have ways to get around all of that and special summon from your deck a copy of your Big Wing Baphomet. That will then allow you to on summon add a level 4 beast, which is your Gazelle, and a copy of Chimera Fusion. Now, it's not always going to be your Gazelle, but it is very likely going to be that card here because it gets you more advantage. Now, all these cards have additional effects as well. So first off, Cornfield Kotal, when it's on the field or in the graveyard, can protect you from targeting effects, which is really nice, assuming you have the Gazelle, the Flying Mythical Beast, on your side of the field. On the other hand, Mirror Sword Knight is the same thing, but it is going to be for on the field monster activations. So it has to be a monster your opponent controls. That means it won't stop something like Nibiru, but it does stop quite a bit of other important effects in the game. Gazelle, when it is sent to the graveyard or sent to the graveyard for fusion material, I should say, it allows you to add from your deck to your hand a illusionist monster, which is very powerful. And then Big Wing Baphomet allows you to, when it's sent to the graveyard for fusion material, allows you to target a illusionist monster in your graveyard and special summon it. All those effects are really valuable. Chimera Fusion is an only during the main phase effect. If it was during the battle phase, that'd be absolutely incredible and would really lead to a lot of OTKs. But hey, it is what it is. The card essentially will allow you to fusion summon with either a beast or a fiend monster to be able to special summon from your extra deck a fusion monster of your choice. Now, Gazelle and Big Wing Baphomet are going to be your beast and or fiends. It does have another effect where, and first of all, that first effect there to fuse is not once per turn at all, which is insane. We love that. The second effect it has is while it's in the graveyard, you have one of 2 effects. The only one you're going to be using in this deck is while you control a copy of the Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, or it's in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand, which obviously has a lot of utility. The biggest reason why that's so good is because it allows you to set for future plays on the crackback on your opponent's turn. Very, very powerful and definitely one of the better engines in the deck. Now, I do want to point out, a lot of people are playing 3 Gazelle and 3 Chimera Fusion. I don't think that's necessary here. Really, I feel comfortable with 2 Gazelle, and because the Chimera Fusion can be recurred back from the graveyard, I feel very happy with the 2 copies in this deck as well. And Big Wing Baphomet is completely standard at 2 copies because it does nothing in your hand. You want to see it in your deck. But anyways, that is going to be our 12 card engine for the Chimera portion of the deck, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the branded portion as well. The deck itself plays quite a bit of cards. It's going to be a 25 card engine, which is a lot of cards in general for the branded plus Chimera portion, and then we have our next non-engine pieces as well in the deck. So for the branded engine, we have of course 2 copies of the Fallen of Albaz. We have 2 copies of the Aluber, the Jester of Despia, and we have then the 1 copy of Quem, the 1 copy of Spriggan's Kit, triple branded opening, and triple branded fusion. as well as the 1 copy of Branded in white. Now, this is a pretty hefty engine here. I'm going to go ahead and explain everything again and why we're playing these ratios here so you guys can see. Now, first off, Fallen of Albaz at 2 is how you want to play the deck. Some are playing 1. I think at 2 is the way to go, because if you end up dumping your Albaz, you want to have access to another one so that the branded fusions you draw, or the Allubers you draw, or the openings you draw are not going to just be dead cards. So I really do like having the second copy of the Fallen of Albaz. On top of that, we do play 2 copies of Alluber, because having access to this card as your normal summon is not what you really want to be doing. But it is nice to have off of a card like Branded Opening to really get the ball rolling. If you open up with Alluber plus Branded Opening, you're going to be going for 100% of the time, opening, discarding the Alluber. You also have Quem in here for our end board, but it's also a great card to pull off of the opening, especially in the end phase in your turn. Very valuable here, and it also plays really well with the Chimera Fusion, because if you're going to go for a Mirror Jade effect and then you get rid of your opponent's first monster, you get rid of 1 interruption. The second interruption comes up and you want to go for Chimera Fusion, fusioning away your copy of, let's say it's going to be a random Gazelle or Burfman on your side of the field, something in your hand, and then the Mirror Jade on your side of the field to do the pop 2, draw 1 with your Guardian Chimera. You can then do Chainlink 1 as the Chimera, Chainlink 2 as the Quem, or vice versa, and Quem would target the Mirror Jade, bringing it back, allowing you to have another interruption, which is very valuable. Spriggan's Kit is needed for the deck. It was not played in previous builds of Branded. There's actually very few builds that played it, but the reason why you're playing it now is because it is a level 4 beast. On top of that, you can special summon it if you have an Albaz Fusion on your field or in your graveyard, and it will allow you to search for a copy of your Branded in white. I have 3 Branded opening here for 2 reasons. Number 1, I am playing 3 targets for it in the Quem and then the Allubers. Quem can be searched off of Branded Opening, but more importantly, the fact that Branded Opening is going to be that plus a copy of your Kotal or your Mirror Sword Knight can end up on the best possible board for this strategy. That is really important as well. That strategy is that combo is absolutely incredible. So if you guys want to see it, make sure to smash the like button so I can bring you that video. On top of that, it does provide you with extra protection as well in the graveyard for these destruction effects like Dark Hole or Raigeki or Kaiju Slumber or whatever the case might be. And then finally, Branded Fusion is absolutely busted. We know that this card is insanity. Definitely at 3 copies. I think the only things I would cut potentially would be maybe 1 Branded Opening, and then if I would do that, maybe I'd cut an Alluber, but honestly, I feel like 2 is still the correct play. On to Branded in white. This card is needed to kind of extend a good bit and get you to the full branded portion of your combo to get you access to Mirror Jade on your turn as well. Essentially, you're going to be using this card to banish an Albaz plus a Kit or a Burfnet from your graveyard to go into Lubellion, and then you're going to discard your card to use the Lubellion effect, and then go into your copy of the Mirror Jade, which is obviously very powerful. And the fact that it is searchable off of Kit is amazing as well. So this is going to be our branded engine. We're looking at what, a 17 card engine here. It's not bad at all. We have this 6 cards, the 6 spells plus our 7th in branded opening. Then we have our, no, this is not at all 17. What am I saying? It's 7, 9, 10, 13 cards. There we go. 13 cards in our branded engine here. Moving on to our non-engine, we have a lot more hand traps here. You know, branded is very known as a deck that has very little non-engine capabilities. And I'll be honest, we're at like 27, 25 cards in our main deck right now, which is absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. So we're going to play a lot of non-engine. Starting off with 3 copies of what I think is the best hand trap in the game, being the Droll and Lockbird. Right now, Droll I think is so good against so many different decks. It is absolutely effective against decks like Vanadium. It can shut down decks like Dragon Link. It can shut down a lot of the combo heavy decks in the format that really don't like to deal with Droll. Of course, he also helps you out a lot with rogue decks too, so just keep that in mind. We now have 3 copies of the Infinite Impermanence. Imperm is one of the best hand traps in the format right now. It is absolutely critical to have access to this in your deck. The targeting negation is really valuable. The fact that it is also a trap card, not a monster, means it helps you out with triple tactics talents and thrust, so keep that in mind. We then have 3 copies of Book of Moon. I think Book of Moon is absolutely crazy in this format, not just for the offensive purposes, or the defensive purposes, I should say, by like Book of Mooning a Kashtira Arise Heart or a Kashtira Shangri-Ira, but it's also good defensively for yourself. If you're going for your Burfmet line and then your opponent goes for Imperm or Valor or Mourner or anything like that on you, and you have Book in your hand, you chain Book to it. Your opponent's now down 1 card. You still have your Burfmet on the side of the field, and it doesn't matter if it's face up or face down. You've now protected it. It's a great going first and going second card. That's why I have it. That's why I wanted to show about all these 3 cards here. They're fantastic going first and going second, so just keep that in mind for the rest of the video. We then have 3 copies of Super Poly. Super Poly is going to be great to break boards here in the format. We play a couple different targets in our deck. We have a lot of options to go into. We play against a dark deck. We have an amazing access to Dragos Tapelia. We play against a deck that has the same attributes and different types. We have our copy of the Mud Dragon. We have the same attributes, same type. We have Garura. There is a ton of options, and the fact that your opponent can't respond to this at all is absolutely critical. I love that about this card. Next up, we have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. You can go to 3 if you'd like. Just drop another card somewhere else. I think Talents is a fantastic card here in this deck. The fact that you get the 2 extra draws can be really nice if you get ashed on your Mirror Sword Knight or on something like your Branded Fusion. Just keep that in mind. It is very powerful as well. Even then, just the knowledge, if you manage to go through your entire combo, let's say we have that same combo I was mentioning earlier. You go for your Berfomet, your opponent tries to go for a Valor on you. You then chain Book of Moon. Well, now they're down 1 card. You still go through your normal combo as is. You get to your copy of the Chimera King. You get rid of another card in your opponent's hand. In the end phase, they're now going to be down to 3 cards plus their draw. You go for Talents. They're now down to just 2 cards plus their draw, and you have pretty much full hand knowledge. That is absolutely disgusting. Next up, though, our final card in the non-engine portion of the deck is going to be 1 copy of Call by the Grave. Pretty self-explanatory, just a fantastic card. I want to get to 40 cards in this specific, more standard portion of the build, and these next 4 cards are going to be a little bit less standard, but I do like them a lot in the deck, and this will get us there. If you want to replace Call by with a 3rd talent, then by all means, go for it. But this is going to be our copies of our non-engine here. I think it's a fantastic combination. If you guys have any suggestions for what to make a change to, then by all means, let me know down in the comments. At the same time, make sure to adjust that based on your meta. If your meta is much more heavily into other decks that just don't lose to Droll or don't really care too much about Book of Moon or Imperm, then by all means, make the change. Whatever your meta suits for, go for that. As for our next engine here, we are playing an engine that is still a holdover from the previous iteration of Branded, and that's going to be the 1 copy of Bestial Lubellion, the 1 Saronir, the 1 Branded Lost, and then the 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Mercourier. Now, this is not standard at all. I have not seen anyone actually play this engine. When I first started creating and messing around with Branded Chimera, I was like, I want to play a 60-card build. I want to have access to my Allure of Darknesses, which didn't make any sense because a lot of the deck is not dark anymore. I want to have access to my Patchwork engine. I want to have this engine. I want to have so much going on. That was not the right decision. For a small 4-card investment in the main deck, which doesn't change my ratios too much, or my probability rather too much, I have access to a much higher upside. I have access to a Bestial, a searchable Bestial in the deck. I have access to a way to get the Branded Lost to protect my plays even more, and give me access to another negate in the form of Mercourier. On top of that, it can give me access to cards like Albaz or cards like Quem if I really need to. I think this engine is very strong. It is a cuttable engine, and it does take up, I'd say, maybe 1 spot in the extra deck, but it is still a fantastic engine nonetheless, and is really, really powerful. That raises the ceiling of the deck significantly. Obviously, though, there are different opinions on this right now, but I think this is the best way to play a Branded Chimera deck in the current format. Now let's go ahead and move on to our extra deck? Extra deck already. Damn, that's kind of flown by already. Let's go ahead and start talking about our extra deck. We're going to go ahead and talk about, of course, our 2 copies of the Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. This is the bread and butter. You're ending on this card pretty much every single time in your combo. Great effect. 2 of them actually. The first one, you get to basically discard a card from your opponent's hand in the end phase, which is incredible. But at the same time, you're also able to, when it's in the graveyard, banish it to be able to special summon back a beast, a fiend, or an illusionist, which is really good. And it's also considered as Gazelle, the flying mythical beast, on your field, which is, and I believe in your graveyard as well, and that's really powerful. Next up is going to be, of course, the 1 copy of the Chimera, the Illusion Beast. This is obviously going to be a OTK enabler for the deck. It's going to be requiring this card here, or Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, rather, and an illusion or more, 1 or more illusion monsters. So this can be really good if you can get it to like 3 or 4 different materials used for a fusion summoning, because you can OTK pretty easily. As long as you have, what, 4 of them, then you can just go attack into a monster. You don't take any damage, they don't take any damage, they go to 0 attack, you just keep crashing into them, and then you're in a really fantastic position. There we go, fantastic card here. Of course, we're going to still play 2 copies of the Guardian Chimera. This card is great. I tried testing it at 1 to see if it was going to work, as well as try testing this at 1. The deck just loses so much upside if you have 1 copy of each. I would definitely recommend playing 2 of them. If you cannot get your hand on the 2nd copy of Chimera King or the 2nd copy of Guardian Chimera, I understand. Just play 1. The deck is still fine without it. It just, you lose a lot more upside without having access to that. And these are really the most expensive cards in the main, in the total deck itself, outside of course, the Bestial Lubellion. So just keep that in mind, which again, is not even a mandatory part to play in the deck, not part of the engine itself. Moving on, though, we're going to have another copy of one other card as part of the Chimera engine, being the 1 copy of the Magnum the Reliever. This is a solid card here, but I think future lists eventually are going to end up cutting this card itself. It just feels a bit redundant, I find. It's good because you don't have to have 3 different materials like you would have for Guardian Chimera. You only need the 2, one on field from the extra deck and then one in your hand, so it can be kind of nice. It allows you to recycle back some cards, which is also kind of cool. It is a Fiend as well, which helps out at least a little bit for your Chimera Fusion plays, so just keep that in mind. Other than that, though, we have our branded engine, and we're going to go ahead and move these off to the side so that way we're not getting them in the way. So these are going to be our Chimera engine cards. Moving on, though, to our branded engine, we're going to go ahead and start talking about, of course, 2 copies of Mirajade the Iceblade Dragon. If you're playing at something that can rip out your extra deck, you want to have access to another one. That's why I play 2 of them. We then have the 1 copy of Lubellion and the 1 copy of the Albion. I wish I had space to play a second one. I don't. It honestly irks me I don't have a second one in the deck because it gets you access to more plays. You don't have to rely as heavily on Lubellion anymore, and it is still a fantastic play. But really, if you're going to be doing the branded combo line where you send Lubellion, getting the Albion is great. You can't really shuffle it back in unless you go through another line with Lubellion. Just keep that in mind. This card, though, is great to get into your graveyard. We then, of course, have the 1 copy of the Rinbrum. We have the 1 copy of the Titaniclad to continue our branded engine, or at least conclude our branded extra deck space. Rinbrum is great. It's part of your combo with the branded fusion to get access to your Chimera fusion engine. It's also really good for effect negation of extra deck monsters, which is obviously fantastic, and has an amazing graveyard effect where you can target itself and an Albaz, or not target itself, but you target an Albaz in your graveyard and you special summon one and banish the other, which you can actually use in this variant because you're trying to actually go into the Rinbrum on your side of the field. It is really good to get interruptions on your turn and on your opponent's turn. And then finally, Titaniclad. This is specifically for an end board where you can actually send the Titaniclad to get out a copy of your Quem or your Albaz directly from the deck, which can be very, very powerful. And then for our super poly targets, we have the 1 copy of Dragostapelia, we have the 1 copy of the Mud Dragon of the Swamp. I'm going to move things over a little bit because of the glare, and then we have the 1 copy of the Garura. And again, the glare is just absolutely terrible there. I apologize. Now, obviously, this board here, these cards are absolutely fantastic for super poly targets. Are there other options to play? Yeah, you can play like Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. I don't necessarily recommend it. The extra deck space is a little bit tight here. If I needed a bit more space because I had, let's say, 1 Chimera, 1 Guardian Chimera, 1 Chimera King, instead of playing something like the Starving Venom, I might just play a 2nd copy of Albion. Would be not bad. But yeah, if you want to play more super poly targets, you definitely can. There are like the Draco Quest Knight or something that's seeing some play. I personally don't like it. I also don't have it, so I'm not really going to be running it in this specific deck build. But yeah, Dragostapelia is fantastic for negates. Mud Dragon and Garura are just strictly super poly targets, but have their own unique niche effects. That is going to be our extra deck here. Really solid. Not much I would make in terms of changes about this. I think eventually, like I said, Magnum the Reliever will be removed from the extra deck, but we'll see what happens down the line. Next up, though, is going to be our side deck. We have this side deck, which is going to be featuring a lot more for my specific locals. This is a guide for the side deck, not just like you have to play these cards in your side deck. They perform a specific purpose and reason, so I am playing them for that reason. But if your side deck, if your locals or your meta around you has a lot more purely, for example, than mine does, which mine has like 0, then I would recommend maybe making an adjustment, adding in like a Herald of the Abyss or something for this deck. Anyways, starting off, we have 3 copies of our Nibiru the Primal Being. The card is absolutely fantastic at these like monster combo decks, which really hate Nibiru unless they can get to like a Barone or something before their 5th summon, which is not always going to be the case. The deck also really struggles a lot. This deck here struggles a lot going second into a board full of negates, so we want to play the 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Very solid to be able to interrupt your opponent and stop them from being able to negate your combo, so I felt like it was really powerful. And just in case that something like Droll and Lockbird or Imperm or even Book of Moon wasn't that good against your opponent, I want to have another generic hand trap to put in that can be good going first and second. That's going to be 3 copies of Ash Blossom, which are really powerful. We then have our 3 copies of our Pseudo Back Row Hates, which is going to be 3 copies of Evenly Matched. I think it's just a fantastic card in the meta. Really good going second. Pairing this with Dark Ruler No More is obviously great. We then have 2 Kaijus in the form of Radiant. I'm going to explain why Radiant is really good in just a second, but our final card in the deck is going to be 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. So why is Radiant the best Kaiju for this deck? Well, first of all, it's a dark monster, which is great. Second of all, it's a Fiend monster, which is also amazing. The Fiend monster that you're giving to your opponent, you can super poly it away with a Beast monster to go into your own copy of the Chimera King. Really, really powerful. Just an amazing combination to have access, so just keep that in mind. And of course, when you normal summon your Albaz, you can discard a card, fuse with the Radiant, and you get access to your Lubellion. And that's it. That's really it. The deck itself is super simple. It is a really straightforward deck to play, in my opinion. There's a lot of intuitive combos. You just have to keep a track of your chain links because there are quite a bit of them, in my opinion, but that really covers it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, then do me a favor and smash the like button, because at 60 likes, I'll be bringing you an amazing combo guide for this deck. And of course, guys, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. We are so damn close to 1,000 subscribers at the time of recording this video. Also, just letting you know, about like 5% of you guys are subscribed to the channel, so, you know, make sure to hit that sub button. It'd be great. We really appreciate it. And of course, let me know what you thought of the video down in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.